about Mark Few? Like we talked earlier about UCLA switching and making things difficult for him, and instead of just like swinging the ball around and trying to find, I don't know what they were trying to find early in the just went directly to the miss at the end of the second half and in overtime, where Drew Timme had the guard, and they were like, all right, fine, we're just going to go to Drew Timme and get the bucket. Like, it took them almost like for to get to that, as opposed to like in the beginning of the game, they were swinging the ball around and Joel Ayayi played great in the first half as well. But it just didn't seem like they wanted to initially attack that mismatch. Like, because they had it early. Like, they were switching the entire time.
Yeah, that was a little bit strange. I don't understand. I think if Few could have it back, he would change that a little bit. It seemed like what they were trying to do very early on was to try to get Tiger Campbell isolated in the post against Joel Ayayi or against Andrew Nembhard, which I get. But it's also like, if your game plan is to go to your fourth or your fifth best option instead of going to one of your three All-Americans, like I feel like that's kind of not the greatest answer. But at the same time, like when you watch that, I don't think their issue was on the offensive end of the floor. Like they more or less got what they wanted whenever they wanted it, right?
Yeah, it wasn't that big a deal.
It was 93-90. It's hard to have many issues on the offensive end of the floor in a college game.
Yeah, like the thing was they just couldn't get stops against like UCLA's guys, and I honestly don't even know if it was like bad defense or just like UCLA made big shots. You know, like I think it was a combination of both.
I mean, Jaquez at the four really did not help Corey Kispert out early in the game.
No, he did not. He was
that key. Yeah, exactly. And it was. I think it was more of a matchup scenario. And then I mean, Gonzaga just figured a way to win the game. I mean, it was suiting UCLA a little bit.
You know what's amazing too? What's amazing about this game is that there was no depth present at all in this game. UCLA had 6 bench points. Gonzaga had a total of 4. Like these were 2 starting fives that played at such a high level. There were no holes in either 5-man rotation. And the minutes load here is just crazy in this game. But it had everything. And I'll tell you, free throws ended up being crucial. You know, Gonzaga missed 8. They went 12 of 20 from the line. They're going to have to clean that up against Baylor. UCLA went 14 of 21. It just does not cease to amaze me of how good of a ball game this was. And anybody that's criticizing it, somebody said that was not a well-played defensive game. I disagree with that. I thought both teams schemed very well, but I thought that by the same token, both coaches found ways to get little wrinkles involved in the game to make changes. And you know what's also great? How many times, guys, has it become 1v1? Like this star's doing his thing, this star's doing his thing. Let's see who makes more plays. And sometimes one star does too much, and that's how the game ends. The other team loses. This game was, Suggs throws a punch. Nembhard throws a punch. Juzang throws one. Jaquez throws one. It just was so good. And if you're a college basketball fan or a casual sports fan, you can't watch that and not fall in love again, if you needed to, with this sport. It was beautiful in every way, shape, and form. And, I mean, I can't say enough about the efforts of these two teams on this type of stage in the season that's been as crappy as it's been. I only wonder what a full Lucas Oil Stadium would be like right now. Could you imagine the streets of Indianapolis? There wouldn't be 2 beers. There'd be people on their 12th and 13th beers.
It would be crazy.
Can I ask you guys a question?
Yeah.
Yes, you can, Dave. You can ask me whatever you want.
Thank you so much. What if you're Gonzaga? Excuse me. If you're Baylor, are you worried after watching this game, or if you're Gonzaga, are you worried? Like, which one do you think is more worried about who? Because before this game started, I'm not going to lie, watching the first half of Baylor, and then watching the game, be kind of close early, and then Baylor flex, and then the game was over, basically for the rest of the game. I would say Gonzaga had a lot to worry about, but then watching them put on that scoring display and watching how everybody played, I was kind of like, wow, like maybe, I mean, if Baylor can make shots, of course they made shots all year, it'll be interesting, but I just wonder, like, who has the most to worry about.
I'll just submit briefly and say, if Jared Butler plays to the level he did today, that has not been the Jared Butler we've seen before today. Knowing Mitchell and Teague and the level they've been at, if Butler's playing at the All-American level we all know he can play at, then if I'm Gonzaga, we know if Gonzaga plays their A game, they're going to – I still believe they'll win the national title. But Jared Butler kind of unleashed the layer we've almost been waiting for from Baylor.
Yeah, he was amazing for them.
Gonzaga should be a little bit more worried heading into Monday. I think Baylor feels damn good about themselves. I would.
See, I don't even think it's – I don't think it's Butler as much as I think it was Jonathan Tchamwa-Tchatchoua. And here's why.
He was no MVP-ish.
What Baylor loves to do is to put people in ball screens. And part of the reason why they're so effective at putting people in ball screens is because they have those 4 guards that can shoot. One of them being Jared Butler, an All-American point guard and playmaker out of ball screens. The other one being Davion Mitchell, a guy who I think should be a top 10 pick as a playmaker and coming out of ball screens. Maceo Teague, another guy that's basically a point guard. Matthew Meyer, shot maker, right? Adam Flagler, the 40% three-point shooter. Like these, there's a reason why they shoot 42% from 3 and led the nation in three-point shooting. And what happens is they want to spread you out, right? They basically want to have 2 shooters on the weak side of the floor, a shooter in the corner, and a guy coming off a ball screen at the top of the key going to the right-hand side. And what happens is when you have Jonathan Tchamwa-Tchatchoua and they're setting the screens the way that he was and rolling the way that he was and being as much of a threat, that's what opened everything up. Because all of a sudden, Houston, their weak side taggers, had to go hard over to Tchamwa-Tchatchoua because he was like, he had a 12-foot jumper, he had a dunk, he was playing fantastic. And the fact that he was such a threat offensively completely messed up everything that Houston was doing on the weak side of the ball. And that pass from the guy coming off the ball screen, hitting to the far side corner. I mean, Davion Mitchell made like 2 or 3 of them. Jared Butler made one of them. Jared Butler caught hit 2 threes off of it. Like that skip pass is what was wide open. And once that got going, then Houston didn't have a chance because you either had to tag to take away the dunk, or you let the 3-point shooter open, or you gave Tchamwa-Tchatchoua a dunk. So like having Tchamwa-Tchatchoua that active, and look, he's not been good since they came out of the pause. I got a buddy who's a Baylor fan, and you know how his nickname is Everyday John.
John.
Yeah, he's been calling him any day now, John, since they came out of the pause because the dude he just hasn't been right.
He hasn't been right. Yeah, that's true.
He hasn't been right, and he came back and unbelievable, man. Like just they were so good. They were. Gonzaga was so good. I'm so fired up. Like I'm so happy.